Hello YouTube, I'm Darren Ruggan, and on this video I'm doing a book review, and we're reviewing The Mom Test. What is it? Is it any good? And who should be reading it? The Mom Test by Rob Fitzpatrick. What's it about? Is it any good? And should you watch it? Well, let's get into that. But before we do, this is a new series that I'm going to be doing. About once a month, I'm going to be doing a book review. I've had a subscription to Audible for about 6 years now, and I've had a book a month. So I went through quite a few books. I'm hoping to go through those. So I'm going to have some links in the description over to a Notion where I'm going to start doing recommendations of these books. You can come along and check them out if you do desire. Now, this is not a sponsored post. There is no affiliate links. This is what I think of this book. So how do I describe the book in 3 sentences? First, it's problem validation over product or idea validation. How do I ask better questions to understand that people actually care? Now let me pause. This is a critical point. I've been doing entrepreneurship for about 10 years. I've seen lots of people build lots of products. But are you really solving a problem? Will people pay you money? It's better to know before you build anything and understand how to position what you're doing. Maybe a pivot of the product, a pivot of the customer. And this is an extremely important thing. I've been talking about this through some local accelerators for a while, because if you wait until you finish building a product and then decide to launch it and figure out if anyone cares, there's a long lead time. Let's say it'll take you 6 months to a year. So that means every year you can actually determine if you are on the right path. You can hone those products over time, which means you can have more shots on goal. And you're more likely to score if you have more shots on goal. So let's get into it. I think it's like an updated and a more practical focus on the customer discovery process, which was originally introduced, as far as I know, by Steve Blank, the OG of entrepreneurship education, who does a lot of courses with Stanford and the Lean Start Pad, something like that. Anyway, the links are in the description. And that was also brought forward through Y Combinator, and you'll see it through the Sam Altman startup classes and then the more recent startup school. And I believe the author did go through Y Combinator and has probably pulled that out as one of the most important things that you should do when you're starting a new business or idea. Now, this book's quite a short book. It's very digestible. It's easy to understand. Some of the other stuff that I've mentioned, like Steve Blank, he's an academic. It does get a little academic. It is a little dry. And I find that this uses tangible examples, and it's very easy for anyone to pick up and read in a weekend and hopefully make you a better entrepreneur. So how did I discover this? Well, I was recommended by several founders to check it out, and a bunch of other people in the indie hacker community have been recommending it to each other. I was initially reluctant to read this book because I thought it was going to rehash the customer discovery interviews, which I've seen Steve Blank do. I've actually really enjoyed this book. And this book is the first time where I've been able to grab that customer discovery interview and pull it out as a standalone resource, which I can give to anyone starting a new business or a new business line, or trying to figure out how to add new features to a product or service. And it doesn't require a larger framework in order to deliver value, which I think is spectacular. I'm actually probably going to buy some of these books for other people and just drop them in. How do I know if I'm going in the right direction if I'm not asking the right questions? So, who should read this? You're early stage. If you haven't started something, this is ideally the best time for you. If you are doing a new product line or you're thinking about pivoting over to a new business, then this is also good for you. If you've done customer discovery, you've read the Steve Blank, you've done the startup school or the startup classes, then there may not be as much tangible value, but as a refresher, I'd still think it's pretty good. Like from a physical book, it's only like 140 pages long, and it's also on Audible, which is my favorite way to consume books. So what are my top takeaways from this book? Number 1, understand the customer and their problems. It's not your idea. It's not about your solution or how great your product is. It's about, does the customer have your problem? And that is critically important. If there isn't a resonance of the problem, there's not going to be a resonance of the solution, folks. It's not how it's going to work. I have a snoring Frenchie at my feet. If you watch my videos, you might hear that. She's super cute. She's also super tired. One of the big things from the book is, do they feel the problem? When's the last time did they do something? We try not to lead them to the solution or idea that we have. We want them to feel out that problem space so that we're able to determine if this is impactful to them. How important is this? Have they looked for a solution? How do they do it now? These are the sorts of subjects and questions that they discuss. Number 2, anchor the fluff. It's very important. You get so many shit answers, so many fluffy answers, and anchoring those by asking follow-up questions to nail down the actual answer is one of the best parts of this book. They may also add some future tense. Oh, I may use this. I will use this in the future. I will use it when X and Y and Z are there. Now, X and Y and Z may be the reason they don't use it, but more likely they're trying to exclude themselves from your customer base and save face. They don't want to tell you they don't like your idea. They don't want to tell you I'm never going to use it. So they'll try to use these. Generic claims is another point that they discuss, especially in this anchoring. So when somebody says, we always do this, you ask, when was the last time you did it? Was it last Thursday? Was it last Tuesday? Was it last month? And then before that, is it every month? Is it every week? Because you want to get through those generic terms to actually understand the real frequency of people do this. Because if you're building a product that people only use once a year, it's very unlikely that it's going to work. And the other bit about fluffy, anchoring the fluff, is to dig a bit deeper. Now, what do I mean by dig a bit deeper? When they say that they have a feature or they need a function or they have a solution, you need to ask like, why? At the end of the day, we deliver products or services that either save people time, save people money, or make money. There's a value that they get out of using your product. And it's not the product itself, it is an enablement to get to that value. So we want to know what that value is, because that is the value proposition of what you're trying to do. And that is how you will sell your product in the future. And I think they do a good job of helping you reframe how to do a deep dive. Like, what is the benefit of this task, service, or product? What does it actually mean to you? It may mean that I get back my Saturdays. It may mean that I don't need to hire more staff. It may mean I bring more revenue in. But you want to get past those day-to-day things to actually understand core value. And that language which is used can actually be beneficial in the future too. They don't really talk about that in the book, about how to take that language and use that in the sales process later. But that's just something I'd add. We've went through number 1, understand the problem space and the customer. Number 2, anchor the fluff. And number 3, questions. You need to prepare the questions ahead of time. What is important for you to know? What are the hard questions? Do you actually want to ask if people care about the problem you're trying to build for? You don't want to come up and say, do you hate getting wet in the rain? Everyone hates getting wet in the rain. These things are just confirmation bias reaffirmations, and they're not valuable to anybody. One of the other points in the book, which I think is great, is conversations over questionnaires. Now, I started with questionnaires myself, and there's value in having a questionnaire developed. What are the important questions? Well, the top 3 important questions, which should be at the top of the questionnaire, with the least important questions falling to the bottom. And that's great, but as this book would describe, it's more about having many conversations, not trying to have a structured meeting where we run through the questions in the questionnaire. The questionnaire is about having structure to have a comparison, which I think is very important, but you want to have a meaningful conversation, a conversation flow that goes off and on. If I've only got 3 minutes, what are the 3 questions I'm going to ask? If I've got 6 minutes, what are the top 6 questions that I want to ask? And that can also change for the type of customer or user that we're talking to. Now, in the questions, are you actually asking hard questions? Is there questions in there that could prove that your value proposition is invalid? Because most of the questions I've seen do not do this. They pussyfoot around the core value proposition to see if people care, and they ask questions that we already know the answer to. We want to know if you should be going ahead. It's like a game where you get into a checkpoint. So it needs to be an actual real hard question, not just a reaffirmation of the basic confirmation biases that we all hold. Another big point is you should be able to gauge the interest of the individual in a conversation. If they're not interested, they're not interested. Don't keep selling them on the problem. If the problem is big enough, they will come to it themselves. You can lead them to it and say, is this a problem? I would then try to quantify that to say, would you consider this like in your top 10 of problems? And if they say no, you're like, is this really a problem? Do you even care? Because if they don't care, that's great to know. It may be that your product or service is at the wrong market. It may need to pivot with its features or functions, or it may be a complete waste of time. And that is much better to know before you start and spend a lot of money. All right, so another big point in the book is stop trying to schedule coffee meetings. Just meet people and ask them the questions. Take notes afterwards, not to interrupt the conversation flow, and have more of an informal conversation where you can ask these types of questions over and over. Go to the locations where your customer are. Don't keep blindly asking for coffees because people are busy. I don't know who you are. Don't hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm not going to answer, and I'm not going to go for a cup of coffee with you unless someone else has recommended me to do so, or someone else has asked me, because I'm doing it as a favor to the person who asked me for a coffee. I'm probably not going to catch up with you. It's not that you're not awesome. It's just I'm busy. So why would I want to stop so that you can have a cup of coffee when I don't even know who you are? Ask the top 2 or 3 questions while you're waiting for a cup of coffee, while you're at a conference, while you're at a trade event. The book is a very good way of doing that. I really like that. Now, I used to lean much more towards more of the scheduled meetings, which I think worked a bit better back like 6-7 years ago. But these days, that more informal conversation, I think works much better. Now, how do you record this stuff? I would agree that they talk about taking notes. And I think the taking notes after the conversation, while it's still fresh, is very important to be able to compare and contrast against the questionnaire. So you talk to someone, afterwards you sit in the corner, pull out your phone, put it in Notion. This is not a sponsored post by any means, Evernote, whatever you want to use, but record that while it's fresh. So all in all, it's a very short, digestible read. Check out the link down in the description for the full written review of this book and some links to the Startup School, Steve Blank, and a presentation that I also give at an accelerator program covering customer discovery interviews, which is the overarching topic that this book covers. This book is a standalone resource that focuses on how to deliver the value to you as quickly as possible without getting caught up in the jargon and some larger framework. So it's a big thumbs up for me. The Mom Test, check it out. I'm Darren Rogan. I hope you enjoyed these videos. Ciao.